Hello, I'm Christopher Neame. This is a little about my life as an actor. I do hope you enjoy it. I certainly enjoyed the ride.
Well, Christopher, lovely to see you today, and thank you for agreeing to see me. We'll start with the Whatever Happened To series, where it's a quick-fire questionnaire. So let's start with question number 1. What is your full name given at birth?
Christopher Lawrence Neame.
And when is your birthday and the year of your birth?
It's September the 12th, 1947.
And as a child, where were you born and raised?
In London town. I was raised in the country in Sussex, but there was a big fog in 1950 in London, and my father said, let's get these kids, me and my sister, out of London. So we went down to Sussex, where we stayed. Beautiful, beautiful Sussex.
And you mentioned your sister there, but the next question is, if any, how many brothers or sisters did you have growing up?
Just one sister, yeah.
And what's the age difference between you two?
2 years, yeah.
You're the elder or she's the elder?
She's the elder.
Great.
Funnily enough, what I will tell you is that one of the reasons I wanted to do this for Caroline is because my sister died of breast cancer 6 years ago. So, you know, it's very personal to me, this, to support a wonderful organization that is close to my heart, you know.
I'm sorry to hear the news.
Yeah.
What is your earliest memory of going to the cinema or the theatre?
Oh, very much so. My father took us to see Dr. No, first James Bond film, and we were both extremely excited to see it. And that's really what I remember, you know, most vividly. Yeah.
And growing up, did you have a favourite actor or actress whose work you really admired?
No. I really didn't know anything about the profession when I was growing up at all.
So was there an actual event or trigger that first prompted you to seriously consider acting as a profession?
Oh yeah, when I was at school, I spent a lot of time in the theatre. At school, we had a very good theatre section, and then you know, I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't know how to do it. I mean, I didn't know how to start. My father was a broker at Lloyd's Insurance, and he encouraged me to go in with that firm, and I lasted for about 6 months. Then I was fired. And then I tried various other things, which never really worked out. And then, ironically, my sister, who was working in London, invited me to a party. And at the party, I met an actress, not an actress, I beg your pardon, just very lovely lady who I was talking to. I said, I shared how very much I wanted to be an actor. She said, well, you must meet my friend Maxine Audley. Maxine Audley was a very, very famous West End actress at the time. And I went to see her. She was very kind, and she introduced me to Frank Hawser, who was the artistic director of the Oxford Playhouse. I went to see him. I auditioned for him. God knows what I did. I didn't know how to audition. And he gave me a place in the Oxford Playhouse company as a student assistant stage manager for £4 a week. And I did everything. I acted, I did the props, I did everything. I cleaned out the toilets, the ashtrays, you name it, I did everything. And it was a great start, because I you know, I learnt from there how to have respect for everyone else when I was working in the theatre or cinema or TV, you know, because I'd been down there, right down at the bottom. And then after that, I went to do weekly rep at Great Yarmouth. And then I thought, I just need to know what to do. I didn't know how to act, really. So I auditioned for Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, where I went for 3 years and earned a bachelor's degree. And I was picked up by, who was it? Famous American director at the time. And I was put into a very small part in a movie. And then, oh yes. It was a film called No Blade of Grass about nuclear explosion. It was directed by
Cornel Wilde.
Cornel Wilde.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Cornel Wilde. And then I did that. I finished. I graduated, and then I got an agent through, doing shows at the end of the term, the last term, and he got me into Colditz. That's how I started my career. And as a submarine lieutenant, I was 22 years old, and so that's how I started, and that was very successful and launched me in a way.
I mean, it's great. You probably answered the next 3 questions. So the next question would have been, did you formally train anywhere? So the fact you've already answered that, can you just tell me a little bit about the audition process? What did you choose for your audition piece? Can you remember?
For what?
To get into Central Speech.
No idea. Absolutely no idea. But I do know it was a very, very sought after place, because there were about 45 of us who auditioned, and I was one of 3 that got in. And so they already must have seen something in me. And it was great, because I really learned how to do it to a certain extent. But then, as they did in England then, before Margaret Thatcher got rid of all the regional theatres, I went out into rep, everywhere, and I just worked and worked and worked and worked. That's where you really learn your craft, because you knew the technique from drama college, but then you really want to put that into action, and that's how I learned.
So what was your first paid acting performance? Was it at Great Yarmouth Rep, or was it in that?
It was at
film?
Oxford, £4 a week. And then Great Yarmouth was £10 a week. So, and I worked so hard. I just worked my tush off, In a way, I wanted to go to drama school to have a rest, because it was so tough. I was 20, 18, 20, 19, whatever. But I was absolutely knackered, because they really worked you to the bone. And but it was great. I sort of handled it,
I mean, it may be around that time, or maybe when you were in between roles throughout your career. But what other non-acting jobs have you ever done?
I made sandwiches at Gatwick Airport.
At what age?
19, I think. And then I do remember that I'd come off a very successful season at Chichester Festival Theatre. This was when I was in my early 30s, playing in The Eagle Has Two Heads by Jean Cocteau with Jill Bennett. I was playing opposite Jill Bennett. And I finished the season and I was broke. So a friend of mine this was in 1980, I got a job at a hardware store in the East End. And that was 1980, because I remember exactly where I was when John Lennon was shot. And devastating. So that's where I was. Hardware store. But then, luckily, I've always managed to keep working, and so I didn't have to do anything else,
A little bit of a fun one for you now. Can you remember how old you were or what production you were working on when someone first asked you for your autograph?
No, I just can't. I can't. I just simply can't. No, autographs sort of started happening after I made Dracula AD 72, really, because, you know, it's become a cult film. In fact, I got a fan letter from someone in China the other day, you know. No, I mean, it was that film that really started. And now I live in California and I get fan mail almost every day from that film. It's quite extraordinary.
And when you were studying the craft of acting, did you spend much time into constructing a signature, or did it just come naturally to you?
Oh, it just came naturally, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it just comes naturally. Yeah. It just flows. You know.
At any point in your life or your career, have you ever been starstruck when meeting someone famous? And have you ever asked anyone for their autograph?
No, but I worked with Robert Wagner in Colditz, and then I think I told you that when I went to Los Angeles and I stayed after doing A Patriot for Me by John Osborne with Alan Bates, I stayed on in Los Angeles and I was painting houses for $5 an hour. And suddenly I got a call from my agent to say that Robert Wagner, who was back in Los Angeles, knew I was in town somehow through the grapevine and wanted me to be in a pilot for a new series called Lime Street with John Standing. And so at one moment I was $5 an hour in my pocket, then I had $16,000 in my pocket, and I was in Bermuda. So, I mean, that's how things happen in Hollywood, you know.
Wow.
It was Robert Wagner who really got me going, bless his heart.
And throughout your career, were you ever one for collecting any memorabilia?
No, never. I'm not into memorabilia, I'm not into nostalgia, I'm not into collecting things. That's not me at all. I don't do autographs. I don't understand autographs, actually. But if someone wants one, I'm happy to give them. But I don't, because I don't have any, I don't really feel that I need to get an autograph. I mean, for instance, I worked with Patrick Swayze, you know, in Namibia. And Patrick had just come off Dirty Dancing. He'd just finished that, and it hadn't been released, and so he wasn't the mega star that he became after that. So I didn't go up to Patrick and say, "Oh, give me an autograph," you know. No, I just leave people alone, you know. I have respect for actors, and they want their downtime, and I don't want to hassle them for an autograph. It wouldn't mean anything. Do you know?
I mean, you've pretty much worked across every medium, but to perform, what would you choose? Theatre, television, cinema or radio? And what reasons would you give for your answer?
Well, interesting. I did, until COVID, I did a lot of work for the Los Angeles Theatre Works, which is radio. You know, the microphones at the end of the stage, and we go up and play our role there. That was very exciting because it was very, very intense. We had 3 days to rehearse a classic play, and then we had to go in front of an audience and perform it, you know. So that was incredibly terrifying, but at the same moment, it was very fulfilling because we really had to know what we were doing, you know. So that and various theatre productions I've been in with various people, depended on the script, depended on the other actors, you know. It always does. Someone asked me today, what's your favourite thing? I said, it really depends on the script. Because if you got no script, like a lot of television that I did, the scripts weren't too good. It was very hard to do that, because there's nothing to hang on to, No, I think theatre really is the medium that I really, really took to.
You may well have answered it earlier in Dracula, but I will ask it. Which of your parts, performances or characters would you say people remember you for the most?
Dracula.
It is Dracula.
Yeah. It's just amazing how that took over. It just like a wildfire. I mean, as I said, I got a fan mail from China. It's all over the world. I get fan mail from all over the world, literally. Australia, New Zealand. Quite extraordinary. It's on YouTube, and people can pick it up and watch it anytime they like, So
whilst we're talking about Dracula, what can you tell us about your time working for Hammer, and any anecdotes you can share about Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing?
Well, of course, I was completely in awe of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee at the time, because I was 24, I think. I was 24. Yeah, I was about 24. However, because I was so young, it didn't intimidate me at all, because, when you're that age, nothing intimidates you. But I had a secret sort of great respect for them as really seasoned actors. Christopher Lee would sing a lot of opera in his dressing room, And Peter Cushing had a sweet thing. He was dear, dear, dear. His wife had just died before the production started. And at the end of our production, he said, "You guys, all the kids in the show, really got me through, because I was deeply in love with my wife, and I'm grieving terribly. But, having done this film with you young people really lifted me." And also, he smoked, Peter. So at the end of a scene, he would sit in his deck chair, and he'd have a pair of white gloves in the pocket. And he'd take the white gloves out of the pocket and put the white gloves on his hands, smoke a cigarette. The end of the cigarette, he would stub it out, take the white gloves off, put them back in the pocket. He didn't want to get nicotine on his hands. So elegant. He was a very elegant man. And I did a fight scene with him, and he was in his 80s, if he was a day, and he was strong as an ox. Very, very, very fit man. I simply adored him.
And can you remember how you were cast? Did you audition, or...?
Well, I was in Lust for a Vampire. I don't know how I was cast in that, but I think my agent sort of put me up for it and cast in that. And I think because I did quite well in that, they thought that I would be rather good for Johnny Alucard. And I met Christopher Lee, and he gave his approval. And the rest is history,
Well, it may well be your time at Hammer, but taking more of an introspective view of your career, can you name any of your own individual performance or performances that you are personally the most proudest of, or found the most rewarding?
I think in Colditz, because it was such a huge opportunity that was given me. I felt extremely committed to doing my very best. And a lot of those scenes were quite grueling, when I was escaping, or I was caught and I was brought back and all that. It was very, very emotional, and I think I hit the right notes. And indeed, Jerry Glaister, who was the producer, after the first season finished, and then we were picked up for another season, he wrote me a very, very kind letter saying that he's very happy that I'm going to be in the second series. And he said the success of the first series rests partially on my performance, which was incredibly flattering, at that early age. And I was very touched by that. And also the play I did at Chichester Festival Theatre with Jill Bennett. I played this rebel character. It was very sort of, very high emotional piece, and Jill Bennett was very standoffish with me to start with. She wasn't quite sure of me. And then I had a little place out by the river in Chichester, and it was really lovely. And I said, Jill, why don't you come out and be with me, and do some rehearsal with me on I had a deck, overlooking the river. It was beautiful. And I knew through the grapevine that Jill was quite partial to champagne. So I spent most of my weekly earnings on bottles of champagne just to please Jill. And so we got on like a house on fire after that. We really became very, very close. And it was great because it was a terrific role, and a very, very sort of high drama, which I really appreciate, and it's very much me, because I'm sort of I can be pretty dramatic,
And whilst we're talking about your time on stage, what can you remember about your time, maybe firstly at the Old Vic with Anthony Quayle?
Yeah.
What can you remember about your time with him?
Ooh, that was a big one too, to be trusted with the performance at the Old Vic. Yeah, I did The Rivals first, and then we did King Lear. I didn't feel that I really, really got The Rivals right. I'm just not really very good with restoration comedy. But Isla Blair was great opposite me, and and Andy Quayle was great. I do remember, this is rather embarrassing to admit, but I don't know why I felt that I really wasn't there as an actor, because I remember in rehearsals once I said to Tony Quayle, I said, look, so she's talking to me, and so what do I do? And that was unbelievably naive for me to say that. I do remember, it stuck in my mind. And he said, listen. Just listen. Don't do anything. And that was just a turning point for me as an actor, If you're truly listening, then it's mesmerizing for an audience, So that was that, and then I don't think I got the character quite right, but it was. And then what happened? John Clements was directing, and his wife was not well down in Brighton, and so he was going down to Brighton a lot and didn't really have time to direct Lear. So Tony Quayle, as Tony Quayle would do, he said, I'll do it, I'll direct it, and I'll play Lear. So in my humble opinion, I don't think he quite had the energy that he really needed to play that role. He was very good, but he was so exhausted from directing and playing the role. But that's just my opinion. But he was perfect for the role, and I played Edmund, which I really enjoyed, and I played opposite James Aubrey, who we became very, very close, and we had a big fight scene at the end, and we were all in English woad, ancient paint, we had little sort of jock straps, I think, and then painted in this blue. It was quite extraordinary, and I think I got that part right. Yeah, and that was terrific. It was difficult for me because I just got divorced, and so I was sort of homeless. Isla Blair, who was in it with me again, she played Reagan. She found me a place in Richmond, And so it was a long way, to commute from Richmond, but I did it. Isla sort of saved me. Yeah, tricky times, but being on stage, you forget about your personal life.
So we're talking about your theatre work and we're talking about Hammer. So it's probably a nice opportunity to talk about Kate O'Mara, where you did a couple of plays with her at Regent's Park.
Yes.
How did you find Kate?
Simply adored Kate. I adored her because she was extraordinarily talented, I thought. Strong, very vivacious, very charismatic, kind. Caroline has a lot of qualities that Caroline Munro has a lot of qualities that Kate had. And we worked very hard together. I mean, we played 9 performances a week. God, wow. Just thinking about it makes me yawn, 9 performances, 3 matinees a week. Oh my God. And in those days there were no mics, no microphones, at the end of the stage. It was all projection. And I played Petruchio in Taming the Shrew, and then I played Theseus and Oberon, and Kate was, Hippolyta and Titania and Kate. Unbelievable that we did that and got through it and got really good reviews.
And you're always in the lap of the gods at the open air.
Oh yeah.
Were you fortunate with the weather through your run?
Not entirely, no. But the thing is, if it started raining, they would stop the performance and we'd all go into the bar, and get legless. So we kind of were praying for rain. No, that was extraordinary. And magical too, because have you been to Regent's Park?
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
For sure.
So for Midsummer Night's Dream, they had all the fairy lights in the trees. So when the performance started in the light, and then the dusk came in and got darker and darker, and then all those twinkle lights would come out in the tree. It was magic, simply magical. And playing Oberon and Theseus, just a great experience, which I'll never forget.
Now I'm sure you've auditioned throughout your career, but is there one particular audition that you attended, really wanted a part, but unfortunately didn't get for whatever reason?
I'll tell you exactly. And it kind of broke my heart, but then when I saw his performance in the show, I thought, of course, he's perfect, and I wasn't. Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was between me and Anthony Head. We were in LA, and we both auditioned, and I thought I had a really good chance. It was really for a more uncle type role, and I've never been an uncle in anything. I don't have that kind of whatever. And it was very, very nerve-wracking because I knew that it was going to be a great success and there'd be tons of cash and I'd be very wealthy. And I auditioned, and I didn't do a very good audition. I was incredibly nervous. Then Tony got the role, and I was absolutely devastated. But when they shot it and they played it, and I saw Tony Head playing that role, I thought, he is perfect. I wouldn't have come close.
Right.
So that kind of, in a way, calmed me, and made me realize the universe was right. The universe was right. He got it and I didn't. So, but it was gut-wrenching at the time,
And maybe because of other commitments, and you may be working on another production elsewhere, but have you ever had to turn down a role and again regretted that decision?
No, but funnily enough, something similar to this happened to me. I was at the Royal Shakespeare Company, as I said, and I wasn't cast in anything for the next year. And so my agent got me a part, rather nice part, in By the Sword Divided. I played a witch hunter. And suddenly the Royal Shakespeare came through and said, there is a part in Volpone. Miles Anderson was playing Volpone in the West End. Someone had dropped out and the part is available. We'd like Chris to play it. However, I had to record the last few scenes of By the Sword Divided, and they wanted me to do a final rehearsal for Volpone for the Royal Shakespeare Company, and the two dates were similar. And so they said, my agent said, well, can you just, can you fudge it a bit, and let Chris come in a little bit later? They said, no, absolutely no. We need him here. And so that decision changed my life completely, because what happened was I finished the TV, By the Sword Divided. I wasn't going to do Volpone for 6 months in the West End. I was out of work, and I went to see a friend of mine who was a producer, a West End producer. We had lunch, and I said, Jack, I'm out of work. I need to work. And he said, funny enough, I think there is a role, someone again had dropped out in A Patriot for Me with Alan Bates that had been playing in the West End, was going to Los Angeles. He said, I'll make a call. I went to see the director, Ronald Eyre. He said, it's yours. Come to LA with us. And the rest is history. So had the Royal Shakespeare said, yeah, we can fudge it, he can come, I would have stayed in the West End making peanuts, for 6 months. And I never would have gone. I never would have met my wife. I never would have had the career that I've had in Hollywood. It's extraordinary.
Amazing.
I was so lucky. The universe stepped in and changed my life totally, completely.
You've mentioned a few names already, Christopher, but can you name any co-stars that you really liked working with the most, and maybe a little bit more controversial, any that you had a tougher time with, namely those you didn't like?
No, there's been no one I didn't like. Absolutely no one, really, honestly. But those I did like, I never got to know him, but Patrick Swayze was extraordinary to work with, because he was an ex-dancer from the Joffrey Ballet, and he ruined his knees dancing, and he couldn't really dance anymore, so he became an actor. And he had the most extraordinary energy, a dancer's energy. Very, very, very charismatic man. And he was good to me and respected me. And we had mutual respect for each other. All the actors on Colditz I loved and respected. Jill Bennett, of course, wonderful. I've been very lucky with my partners on stage or in film or TV. Very lucky.
And rather than asking you who your favourite director was or is, I'll ask it in a slightly different way, and that is, What does a director need to do to get the best performance out of Christopher Neame?
Well, he needs not to scare me. I had one director who was very, very abusive, and I won't mention any names, but he didn't create the right atmosphere for me to really expand. However, having said that, I apparently gave a really good performance because it was this play I told you about, Giants and Ogres, with Lee Montague and Anne Bell. Alan Owen, the playwright, Welsh playwright, wrote me a love letter after he saw the show, and he said, wonderful things, and I was very proud of that letter. But a director needs to allow the actor to spread his wings and gently and carefully guide if he needs to, but to be abusive and scare an actor is totally the wrong way to go about it, in my opinion. It gets a fragile performance rather than a really profound performance from you,
Right. Here's a bit of a left field one for you now. You're hosting an intimate dinner party and you're able to invite 3 guests to come along. Alive or dead, in the profession, outside of the profession. Who would you invite and why?
Oh my God. Ricky Gervais. But I'd had to take probably a whole bottle of Xanax before he came. 2 more. Penelope Cruz and Javier Bardem, both of them. I mean, a married couple. I just find them irresistible. And of course, a wonderful French actor who was in a series that I watched called Marseille, about Marseille, with Gérard Depardieu. I wouldn't ask him. I would, Benoît Magimel. He's an extremely charismatic, brilliant French actor. I would ask him as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you could relive one moment from your career, whether it be a period of your career or a particular production, what would you choose?
Oh, undoubtedly the Royal Shakespeare Company. I mean, it was. I was so fortunate to be there in 83. Because I lived in a little cottage in the countryside. My girlfriend would come up at weekends. I was doing really good work, I think, amongst supremely talented actors and stage crew, stagecraft, designers and directors. It was a real boiling pot of massive talent, and I was very, very happy there. It was a beautiful summer, and I just loved working there.
How did you find Shakespeare? Would you find it challenging, exhilarating? What's your approach to Shakespeare?
I was very lucky, very blessed that I could really translate it, I mean, I just somehow had a knack. And I did a lot of Shakespeare. I played Romeo 3 times. Once for the television and twice on stage. And I loved it. It was great. It was a great challenge, and I managed to rise above it. I miss it terribly. I miss the romance of the language, and I haven't obviously done it for years and years and years.
So tell us something about you or your career that most people will not already know. Maybe do you have any passions, pastimes, hobbies?
Well, my passion is my family. And my passion is the sunshine. That's why I live in California. My passion is my friends. My passion is keeping my mind and body fit and strong. My passion is to find peace, and I meditate a lot, and my passion is my life, really. Every day in the morning I say thank you, you know. I'm so lucky to have had the life that I've had and continue to have. I hope to be here for a little longer, you know.
So the penultimate question, Christopher, now that we're in this reflective mood, when you look back at your career, both in the UK and the US, what are your overarching memories of the career that you've had?
A lot of wonderful opportunities. I mean, for instance, today when I was sitting at the table writing autographs, I looked around at the photographs and I thought, wow, I have done a lot. And it's been an amazing career in as much as, well, I mean, the opportunities that I've been given and I've grasped, you know, and every single job that I was given, I wanted to do the very best I could. Overarching, I wouldn't have changed it for the world. I just wouldn't. I mean, I was just walking. I hike a lot when I'm in California. I was hiking the other day, thinking, I'm so glad I chose this profession because it really has given me so many opportunities to see the world and see, getting into other people's brains, you know, as you do as an actor. And it's really expanded me, you know, it's really expanded my range of thought and my my whole world. And I traveled a tremendous amount for work. I've seen a lot of the world.
So bringing us completely up to date, finish the sentence. What happened to the Hammer actor Christopher Neame?
Christopher Neame went on to other things. And spent his life with searching for other opportunities and having other opportunities to expand my craft, to learn, always learning. And I've had the most wonderful life. A vivid life, having met brilliantly talented people who enriched my whole existence. I feel a very, very blessed human being.
So Christopher Neame, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure, absolute pleasure.